Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Dockhouse Rugby Show. Today we are joined by Keighley Cougars owners Ryan O'Neill and Cowie Garcia, fresh from the latest meetings with the RFL and the IMG proposals set to re-image Rugby League. They give us an insight into what happens during one of these meetings and also reflect on their opinions and their thoughts of the outcome of the latest talks with the IMG. Keith and Dave talk all things Rugby League on the Dockhouse Rugby Show, with news, match reviews and special guests from the world of Rugby League. Also available in audio format as the Dockhouse Rugby Pod. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Dockhouse Rugby Show. We're joined once again by Keighley Cougar Mania owners. It's Ryan O'Neill and Cowie Garcia. Guys, fresh back from the IMG meeting, which has recently happened. So let's just dive straight into it. But what we want to do is we want to put a slightly different spin on this because, you know, people out there know that these meetings go on. But what we don't often hear or see is what actually goes on. What's it like? What's the process of turning up at a meeting and who's in the room and what's the protocol and are you allowed to speak? Do you have to put your hand up? Do you have a buzzer? Little name tags? Give us the insider
how good's the
info.
Coffee?
Yeah.
Is it good quality coffee or cheap coffee?
I didn't have that actually.
So on arrival, you get a bacon butty if you want, and a cup of coffee. And the room is set up like a horse show. I don't know if people have seen photographs of it on Twitter, or whatever. So we put a photograph on. So it's a huge horseshoe table. Top of the table is obviously you've got IMG, then you've got the RFL, and then you've got sort of people connected with RL commercial and that kind of stuff. So the officials are on the top, and then the clubs sit on either side in alphabetical order. So one person could represent a club. So Cowie was our representative around that horseshoe, and he was sat next to Gary Hetherington and Neil Hampshire from Hunslet. Now, the rest of us, so you're allowed to bring someone with you. So I went obviously with Cowie, and we had to sit behind the top table, behind the RFL. And I sat there with the chairman of Swinton and Jason Hurst, who's the chief executive of Bradford Bulls. And then there were lots of other, like Adam Pearson from Hull. So lots of other directors and owners who weren't on the council table, and we weren't allowed to speak. So we were just there observing. So you get your bacon butty and your cup of coffee or your cup of tea, and then it gets called to order. And then Cowie has to shuffle away, and there's no communication. So we had little WhatsApp chats going constantly, and Cowie's, giving me the lowdown on what he thinks of that person speaking and what's that rubbish he's talking, and he's making a good point, and then I'd be, saying to Cowie, what the hell is all this about? And so we were constantly WhatsApping.
It felt a bit like UN, resolution, Security Council, some type of, that empowerment.
Very bureaucratic.
Yeah.
Like the Imperial and Jedi Council.
Yes.
Very much so. Yeah. So Simon Johnson, the chairman of the RFL, obviously was hosting the meeting, and he had his microphone with a little button, and he'd call it to order, and then he'd decide who would speak. And you had these ladies from the RFL who were running around with the radio mics, giving it to whoever was called. Now Cowie started when the whole presentation happened. We got a presentation first from Tony Sutton, chief exec of the interim chief exec of the Rugby League, and then we got a presentation from Rodri. He's called Rodri, I can't remember his surname. He's the managing director of RL Commercial. So he updated us all on the commercial activities and what's happening with the broadcasting talks and all the rest of it. And then it was the IMG presentation, which was done by Matt Dwyer from IMG, and it was quite a detailed presentation. And then it was open to the floor to ask questions. And Cowie was immediately...
Funny enough, obviously we had a previous meeting where these were kind of introduced, the concepts, the idea, and they were asked to vote. At first I thought, hold on, this is strange. You're not revealing the criteria, you're not revealing the plan, but you're asking us to vote as clubs. And I was like, well, you don't vote there, Labour or the Conservative before you know who is going to be
who's in the race.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like a chicken and egg. You need to know what you're voting for, which I found strange. But you just allowed them.
What are the policies? And do you agree with that? Yeah.
in principle, this is what we would do. So if this gets approved, we will then do more consultation, and then we put the proposal forward. And at the time, I was the only one who voted against, quite vocally, and I think they already knew that. We went with open mind, and we wanted to hear, and we hoped for the better. But when I raised my hand there, I was the first one in the room after the presentation had finished. But funny enough, they didn't let me speak until towards the end.
You were about the 12th one called, weren't you?
Because I thought the strategy there for them was like, okay, let's not let this guy stir the pot here again. Very wise, to be honest. But I kept just raising my hand. I was like, am I blind here? At some point, I even texted Ran. I was like, you know what they are doing, right? And I even the microphone got passed to Gary Hedrington, that didn't even raise his hand as much as, silly me there trying to get people's attention. And but it was kind of the whole manipulation, kind of leading the room to kind of stay quiet for a bit, and then I would then speak my truth.
But just to jump back, so Cowie outlined the first meeting with ING, what was it, a couple of months ago,
November,
when we voted against. To the RFL's credit, they saw that we had deep reservations about this proposal and what IMG were doing. So they did engage with us, and they came down to the club and asked to meet with us. And it was a really good meeting. And they said, look, guys, have an open mind. We understand that you've got your concerns because, obviously, what happened in the 90s to the Cougars is it hurt deep. And I've explained before about how it basically broke my father's heart. So we saw it all happening again. So obviously, we were very skeptical. But the RFL came down and we had a really good meeting with them. We said, look, to respect what you coming down and chatting with us about it and making the effort, we will go with an open mind. And we genuinely did go with an open mind. Because I thought, look, we're all in agreement, Cowie and I, and I'm sure you guys, Keith and David also. The sport needs reforming. It's on its knees. It's a fantastic sport, and it's not anywhere near where it should be. So 100%, Keighley Cougars and me and Cowie, reform this sport, make it successful. But we weren't sure that was the right way to go. But the RFL said to us, look, guys, go along, open mind, listen to what they're saying. You might not be as disappointed as you think you're going to be. And we said, fine, okay, no problem. And we did. And we went there with an open mind. And we're quickly disappointed.
Very much so. It was totally against everything that we believe. I think we started expressing our concerns. So when I finally got the chance to then speak, I think you guys had access to the whole presentation. It's put out there, and the whole scheme of things, how someone achieves those 20 points, breaking down to 0.125. So when I got the chance, when I got the microphone, I said, well, actually, your presentation felt that I was at a NASA presentation or in some algebra class, because, to try and explain this to fans that come and pay 15, 20 pounds in the turnstiles, that, your club will get 0.125 for having a big screen in the stadium, or 0.20. I was like, this is just not a sport. I actually said that my quote was, you made something very simple very much complicated that nobody will understand. And I said, and I think that's the intention here. I said, IMG, no disrespect, but I think your intention is to make it so complicated because then it gets passed through. Just like previous meeting, the first meeting where people didn't understand where we were with things, and it get passed through. And I actually, I was the only one that voted against, but then Batley abstained and Dewsbury, and I came to Kevin on the off Batley and said, hold on, you kind of, you supported me in my argument saying, how can we vote if we don't know the rules? And I said, but you abstained. And he said, because I don't understand. I don't know. I need to see more. And I said, part of your strategy, and let's be accurate, correct here. Their area is marketing, and they are doing very clever, in a clever way of make people confused. You don't understand really. People will say this, people will say that, gets past with the intentions that they want, done.
So they're trying to do a bit of a magician's trick with smoke and mirrors.
100%.
And it sounds like that your experience there was that they came to see you. Obviously, they knew that you were going to oppose it. They've come to see you to almost get you on side and say, look, when you go in the room, just don't say nothing, just listen, let everybody speak, let them get the points across. Then when you did try and speak, they put a bit of a gagging order on you by not giving you your opportunity to speak until all the ones who were positive and in favour had spoken.
Yes. Well, look, when and we have a very good relationship with the RFL. I think we've always said that even despite the outcome of this, we have obviously our opinion, and so the other 35 clubs have their opinion, and they have their reasons as much as we have ours. When they came, it was trying to gauge like where we were in terms with why we oppose, and we said our concerns, and that's the request was like, please just come with an open mind and see, because it's good for progressive clubs like yourselves, that this will help the sport. And actually we thought okay, maybe this will be good for us, but it just contradicts everything.
For me, what's disappointing is, we've come with fresh eyes to Keighley. We've been away. I've been away from the sport 20 years. Cowie comes from a different continent, and we've come and we've seen the problems of the sport straight away. It's blindingly obvious to us, and we've done what we've done at Keighley. We've massively increased the crowds. We've done fantastic things on the field with the great team we've put together. We've made it a really entertaining day. We've got national media exposure. We've had 2 full pages in The Guardian. We've done really good things in League One. Right, in League One, with no away support. So we are the club that engaged the RFL, and we have a great relationship with them. Even now, even after all this drama, we still have a great relationship, and we will continue to do so. I respect them; they're doing their job. I just think the way they've gone with IMG is the wrong way to go. I think the proposals are the wrong way to go. I think IMG are coming in purely with the eyes on the money that they're going to get out of it. I don't think they understand this sport. This is a unique sport it's a northern sport. Its USP is it's a town sport, right? It's not a city sport, and it's failed. And every single time they plonk it in a city, it fails. London Broncos, let's be honest about it, they've been banging on that drum for the last 30 years. It's not succeeded. It's not worked. Newcastle, we're good friends with Jordan up at Newcastle, and I respect the amazing work he's doing. But Newcastle isn't embracing rugby league in the way that you'd think it would do as a big city. Manchester hasn't got a team. Yeah, you've got teams around Manchester, but there isn't a Manchester team. Rugby league's USP and success is it's a town sport, and towns in this country need something. The communities in these towns need something. The shopping centres are dying. There's
high streets.
The high streets are dying. The local bowling alleys are closing. They've got a rugby league team there, and we should be absolutely saying, right, even to the government who are doing all this levelling up and all the rest of it, say, actually, in these towns that are struggling, the one shining light in all of them, if the investment's put into them and the management is done right, is the one success in these towns. And when that succeeds, everything else builds from it. So Cougars, we do really well. We get a shop in we haven't got one. I'm not saying we have, but the idea would be we get into, let's say we get promoted to Super League, we get a shop in the town centre. That town centre suddenly has got footfall, but people are going and buying tickets. You've got footfall, you've got more shops opening. It regenerates a town, as silly as it sounds. But instead of seeing that and seeing that this USP, we're a northern towns-based sport, embrace it and expand with that. Instead, they're saying, actually, we're embarrassed about that. That's a weakness of this sport. We need to be glitzy and city-based and all the rest of it. That's soccer. You're never going to compete with soccer. Let's be honest about it. And if you are trying to compete with soccer, you're always going to fail. And that is exactly, from my point of view, and this is why I object to these IMG proposals, is what they're trying to do. And they've tried to do it before. They've tried it in 1995, 96 with Super League. They tried it with the licensing. It's failed, and it's failed. And the sport has gone from, when my dad took over in 1990 the Cougars, the sport was relatively stable. It was getting decent crowds, and it's gone like that. The more money that's been pumped into it, it's gone like that. And they're just doing the same things again.
And one thing that people sometimes get wrong, in these arguments, and even in the room when I addressed the room saying my expressing my opinion, I said no disrespect to anyone in this room, but I'm gonna upset a few things that I have to name because that's the harsh reality that we all know. Everybody,
nobody until you has spoken the truth to power.
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
He came in, we've talked before about him being the Brazilian, wears his heart on his sleeve, he says it as it is. And he went in and he had the balls to say as it is.
And I said no, this, I preempted because I knew this, I said no disrespect. I said, but the likes of London Skolars, London Broncos, Cornwall, Midlands Hurricanes, and Newcastle, I said they have brought nothing to the table. I said we as clubs here, we all know that when we play these teams, sadly, they don't bring away fans because they don't actually have the fans in their fan bases there. We just came out from League One. Even though you get Cornwall to announce that they have 1,000 fans, if you actually go to the ground, you have 300, 400 maximum. That there are some fabrication there, and people laughed actually when I said, if IMG was actually doing their job, when you go to the so-called expansion areas, it's not what you get sold. And again, the point here that we try to make, and then people might mislead in thinking, oh, you're against expansion. I said no. I said I fully appreciate all the work that all these clubs are doing, and I think they will get bigger and bigger, but they are just not there yet. The expansion that I say that should be concentrated around the M62, why don't we have a club in Harrogate that, it's rugby orientated, rugby union, but, there is an appetite there because when their season finishes, what they're going to do, come to a rugby league, so Blackpool should have, but no. RFL decided to plonk a team in Cornwall. For us as a club, we had to spend 2,500 on a bus to go down, the country basically, and then you have costs with hotel. The whole trip cost us 5,000. And when you think, okay, what has this generated? And again, we are in favor of expansion. Perhaps create a division for the south of the country. Let London grow and say, okay, you're going to be a subdivision, not like conference, but, create another division and let teams actually compete against themselves. And one of the things also that Ryan always said, it's community-based. Even that, I don't think they grasp the identity of the sport because nobody considers themselves as London. What is London? You have 9 million people there.
We live in London, and I'd never dream of going to a Broncos game. First of all, I don't know where they play. There's no marketing, and we identify in the little bit we live in. So if you live in Fulham, you live in Fulham. If you live in Chelsea, you live in Chelsea. If you live in Soho, you live in Soho. If you live in King's Cross, you live in King's Cross. You don't live in London. Is just this great big amalgamation.
Region, almost.
Exactly. So you plonk a team in London. No one identifies with it. Look at soccer. Is there a team in the Premier League
called London?
No, there's Chelsea, there's Arsenal, there's West Ham, there's Tottenham, there's Spurs. There's all these teams in London. They don't call themselves London.
London, baby! Okay, because that's not going to get annoying.
London, baby!
London, baby!
That's the stuff.
Oh, what the hell is that?
That's London, baby!
Because they are in their communities, and those communities are as tight as a place like Keighley, and that's what they don't get about London. And they've been trying to sell this dream forever, and even on at the IMG meeting, again they went on about London.
London, baby!
Guy from IMG was saying, "Oh, we've done focus groups, we've done research, we've looked at the data. London is the future. London is the way to be the capital." And I honestly had to just have an exhalation of breath because I thought, I cannot believe you've spent money on focus groups when all you have to do is just read a few newspaper articles going about 30 years. London has not worked and is not working. It'd be fantastic if it worked, but you've got to let it work itself. You can't just go and say, right, London, we're going to plonk you in a Super League. It's not going to work. It doesn't work like that. It's proved not to work. And they're just doing the same thing again.
And even Newcastle, for example, we do think that Jordan is doing an amazing work there up in Newcastle, but he's up against football, predominantly, the sport there is football. Again, yes, grow, and we are not against expansion. We are in favor, but perhaps there, again, do a few teams that they could compete in their own category there. One that base, where you have 5 or 6 teams, get playing against each other, create the rivalry of suburbs. That's when the game itself, the sport will benefit because it's growing. The so-called, we say, grow organically, but the focus really, and like Rand says, one of the USPs of the sport is the M62. It feels that they're
embarrassed by it.
It's obvious. Anyone knows, all the crowds, and again, I hate when people try to twist my own argument, Rand's argument, saying, London doesn't work. I'm not saying, never have a rugby league club in London, but do it in the best way, give pump money there, create a 5-16, say, guys, compete against yourselves. Cornwall, there is a massive population there in that corner of the country. Again, let's do the same. Let's create a mini league for you guys. And when you get to the stage that you have the fan base, then you come to League One, and then you take the steps necessary. All this, it's the harsh reality. And, even Jordan from Newcastle addressed me saying, oh, look, we are trying, obviously we are not in the same position as some well-established teams that have years and years. We are trying to build, and fair enough. And that's not my point. I'm not making the point. He is doing, and he said it himself. He said, look, it might take 15, 20 years for me to get where Keighley is. So isn't that the answer itself? Maybe then in 15 years, allow Newcastle to be part of a championship and Super League if they get there.
But the problem with these proposals are they're going to put those teams up there because they've got the catchment area, they've got the stadiums, so immediately they've got points at more than we've got. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
That one is unfair. One of the so you guys have seen, right, that there are pillars there, and the catchment area is the 5th pillar, and they are going to consider population of this club against how many teams do you have. So in London, you're going to have 9 million population. Wow. And there's only 2 teams, London Scholars, London Broncos. So they are going to think, okay, the math tells me here that these 2 clubs can attract the 4.5 million. And let's say we get 1 or 5% of that captive audience. So they are going to have more than when then they get numbers of Keighley. We have a population of 97. But the surrounding areas, you have Bradford, you have Dewsbury, you have Batley, we are all close to each other. So they're going to look and think, 97. But if I divide by 6 teams that you have surrounding you, so actually just gives you the 10, 15,000 catchment. So you can only get 15 out of those fans. It's uneven, and that's when today we posted on socials, our tweet was, how is it fair that Cornwall, London, West Midlands are going to get 2 points because of this catchment area, and Keighley and all the others around the M62 will be graded perhaps 0.2?
The crazy thing about catchment is the NRL, the most successful rugby league competition in the world. The majority of those teams are in Sydney. They're suburbs. Yeah. They're suburbs of one city. Now, under the IMG proposals, that wouldn't be allowed. Wouldn't be allowed in their terms. It wouldn't work. If you think about soccer, in Birmingham, you've got Wolverhampton, you've got Birmingham City, you've got Aston Villa, Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Everton. They're all close to each other, and that's why that sport works because you've got this rivalry, this intense rivalry, like we're going to have with Bradford. We're going to get thousands to our Bradford game. We play London Broncos. We're going to get just our fans. That's it.
Nobody came. Yeah. Not literally. We just played them. Last week.
It's very sad to see. Obviously, when the home fans go to the end where we're playing towards, and then the London end, there's 2 men stood there, and you're like, what's the point? And that for me, this IMG is, and they were proud when they first did the presentation to say, this has never, ever been done by any sport ever. And I thought, yes, because it's absolutely bloody crazy. that's why it's not being done, because any other sport would say, well, this is mental. I mean, they're scoring you on whether you've got digital LED sponsors boards around the ground. Now, fabulous. They're very nice. They're great. I'd love to have LED sponsors boards around the ground. It's going to cost us about £400,000-500,000. So how is a championship club ever going to afford that? They're not. Yeah. But so we're going to lose points because we don't have an LED board around the ground. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, we can win all the games, and they're going to say, "Sorry, guys, you haven't got your LED board, so you're not coming in." Yeah. But London, you've got LED boards because you've got a nice stadium, got no one in it. But Keighley, you won. But yeah, we're going to put London up. They've got these things. It's just, for me, I'm like, this isn't sport. How are fans going to understand this? So at the beginning of the season, we sit down and we work out, we're going to beat Whitehaven, we're going to beat X, Y, and Z, we're going to beat them. So yeah, we think we might end up in 5th. Now you're going to have the biggest spreadsheet in the world to put in, well, we might get 0.125% because we've got an electric scoreboard. We might get 0.5% because we've got a few more fans than Batley have got in our catchment area. I mean, it's just not, to be honest, for me, it's taken the fun out of it. And the whole thing about sport, and we talk generally about how you attract fans to the grounds, it's got to be a fun, entertaining experience. And if you are literally creating sport by spreadsheet, that's not fun. That's not entertaining.
Do you really think fans will understand? If we were giving a presentation, and the funny thing was, then Kevin from Batley made a comment, a question actually. He said, so hold on. If I win the £1 million game, let's say just last year, if these were the rules already in place, let's say I won that £1 million game. So what happens? You're gonna let me have my points? Do I go up? Or because someone, maybe the second, actually the loser of that team, let's say if it had been Featherstone, if the loser has 0.125 points because he has a LED, hoardings there around the pitch, would he go up? And Matt said, that's when I say that they made it so complicated that people don't understand, but people in the room started to realize. And he said, yes, it would mean that they would go up if they score more than you, even though you're the winner.
The loser would get promoted.
So everyone in the room, was like, and then even Kevin, so I said, there is no point then in winning the game, actually. And then that's when they try to no, there is, because, if you had won, but you also invested in your facilities and you had the catchment area, then you would go. So do you see how uneven now the battlefield is there?
But also this whole thing about investing in facilities, which 100% agree with. We've been to some shocking rugby league grounds around the country. Absolutely, and we turn up and like, what the hell? How is this in any kind of semi-professional competition? It's not. It's bad. So 100% got to improve the facilities. But how are they expecting these teams in League One and Championship to fund these facilities? They're not offering any money. They're not. They're saying to the clubs, guys, if you want to get category A or B, you've got to put your LED hoardings on. You've got to get a big screen. You've got to own your ground. You've got to have Premiership of tenure or whatever they call it. But how are they expecting it? I mean, every club would love that. We'd love a big screen. I'd love digital hoardings. But they're not telling us how we actually fund that.
They're giving you problems and no solutions.
Yeah. And to be honest, and that's when people get us wrong. When we vote against these fundamentals that they are trying to propose, they might say, okay, you're just addressing the problems. They are actually addressing the problems. They know that they are not addressing the problems. They are just saying, if we do all this now, they got this charts and data. And I tricked Matt by saying, I said, you say in your speech that you're so data driven. Me and Ryan, actually, before the meeting, we got all the statistics of the 2022 season for Championship. The lowest attendance is amongst the two. So they had 28 rounds, 25 rounds of the competition where you had the lowest attendance was when Newcastle or London Broncos played. I said, so obviously what you're saying, it doesn't go with data. If you want to talk about data, let's sit down and see data, because I got those numbers. Me and Ryan were like, okay, let's tick the boxes here. Who got 15 games? The lowest attendance was London, and the rest for Newcastle. And funny enough, when these two then confronted each other, when Newcastle played London Broncos in Newcastle, that was the attendance of 395 attended that game. So you tell me that that's the solution, and these two teams will actually score more than us, and our average crowd. And one again, the pillars fandom. So the first pillar that was introduced, increase your capacities. When I addressed the room, I said, guys, you don't have to tell everyone in this room that we want to increase the crowd. The money goes to our pocket. So obviously I want to get thousands of people more coming to Keighley games. And that's a work that we do. You might have the clubs that are just happy maintaining a mid-level table. You have that, let's just be honest, they are happy, comfortable there. But, you have the ones that do everything. Why we put a drag queen there in the field? Why we make it fun? Because we want to get... But I said there is a natural ceiling of the product that we are selling. Championship, just look statistically, you are only gonna get the maximum, 5,000-6,000. You tell me any other team that got more than that. That is just the product itself is not interesting enough to break the barrier. So no matter if I put, I might bring even Rihanna from the Super Bowl and put her there in the field. I'm
You're still only going to get 6,000 people.
Yeah, it is just a natural thing, and I think that's what they have to accept as well. But allowing us to go to a better league, where Super League is this better and final product of the sport. You have then your TVs, and then you're playing the Giants of Leeds, your Wigans. Do you think that then if Keighley had gone to Super League, our crowds then will break the ceiling? Yeah. You then are going to have 10, 11,000 because you're playing more interesting, no disrespect to the teams in our competition, but it's just the rivalries there. Imagine everyone saying, Leeds goes to Cougar Park on Sunday. The masses will come and they will follow. So to stop us in a fair promotion system that the first one in Championship, they won that £1 million game, so they go up. It kills the sport, and that's our...
You've got to give opportunity. And if you take away the opportunity for us to ever get into Super, which is basically what they're doing to clubs like us, 100%, you've got no opportunity. So how can you ever get those points on these multiple pillars they're talking about if they don't give the opportunity to earn them? And that's, for me, the fundamental problem. We need to get up to get bigger crowds, to be able to afford to pay for our digital hoardings. If you take that away, how does any team ever get it? If they're not there now, how do they ever get there? They're taking that opportunity away.
Yeah, do you think a chicken and egg situation? Sorry, Dave, go on.
Yeah, I was just thinking, do you think then it would be fairer if there was a weighting system? So a crowd of 3,000 in the Championship was equal to a crowd that's 6,000 in Super League? Because applying sort of a weighting system on the scoring, because to get 3,000 in the Championship is like getting double that in Super League, rather than just looking at the hard numbers.
Yeah.
So do you think, to extend that sort of question, I get the feeling you're against a scoring system, but assuming that it's going to be forced upon rugby league teams, do you think you could persuade or encourage them to consider a further scoring system, such as a weighting system or something like that?
Fundamentally, it's complicated because the rugby league already has rules about stadia, about all that kind of stuff. The rules are there. They're not making them from scratch. To get to Super League, you've got to have minimum standards. So that's all already there. The difficulty for me is if you win the £1 million game, and you just happen to be in this new IMG system, half a point below someone else, they go up above you. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you, the winner of the £1 million game, have got a terrible stadium. It doesn't mean you've got a bad catchment area. It just means that, sadly, someone else has a better following on.
Slightly better.
So how is that fair? As long as you meet the minimum criteria, and I totally get that. You can't have a team going up to Super League that plays on a paddock. That's obviously ridiculous. But if you meet that minimum criteria, you win that league, you should go up. No questions about that whatsoever. You don't meet the criteria, 100%. You say, sorry guys, this is an elite competition. You're not set up properly. You're not ready, I'm afraid. So get your house in order. Maybe try and we'll try and work with you to find you a decent stadium and all the rest of it. But at the moment, you're not ready. And I think everybody would accept that. That's fine. But again, then there's another issue which is an issue which people keep talking about, is a yo-yoing. So full-time Super League is full-time, Championship isn't. To invest to get up there and stay up there, you need to have a full-time squad. Costs a lot of money. The problem in the Championship at the moment, you can win the Championship, but you ain't guaranteed to go up because it's playoffs only, one place, playoff only. Why not do it like it is in League One, like it is in other sports, where you win that competition, you go up. Second, you go up if you win the playoffs. And if you do that, a team, for example, who is really going for it, let's just say Featherstone this season, they know they've got a good team. If they knew if they get to number one, they're going to go up, that owner is going to pump more money into it, and he's going to get his facilities sorted out, and he's going to get more players. He's going to send them all full time, and he's going to say, right, we're going to take that risk, and we're going to go up, and we've got to stay up. And if you guarantee that promotion spot, that club would not yo-yo. The difficulty, what they're doing is they're saying you can win it, but if you lose those playoffs, you're not going up. Why would anybody, any owner, pump in potentially millions to guarantee that spot when it's not guaranteed?
Because
we had sorry, Karen, but we had Derek Beaumont on earlier last year when Lee, before they got promoted to Super League. And he had to make that decision. And fortunately for him, he was in a position where he could earmark 1.7 million of a wage bill to put on a gamble that they may or may not make it into Super League. And he said, the problem is, if I don't do that and I don't put that money in, we will just yo-yo, because you can't play a team, play them Championship money, because you're not going to draw the players in. You're not going to keep them. So you can't play Championship money, go up into Super League, then try and recruit, because by the time you've done that, it's too late.
Too late, yeah.
It's reactive and not proactive. So he had to be proactive. Luckily enough for him, he was in a fortunate position where he had that 1.7 million. Not everybody has got that, have they?
Yeah, and even so, it's big money. Even if you've got it, no one wants to just throw it away on the risk. You want some information and some credible risk to that. You're pumping some of your own money in, but you want to have at least a fair chance of getting that promotion or whatever.
And especially for likes of Keighley, where the scars are there and still fresh and raw, that it's happened to you. So it's not it could be a possibility. It's we've been here twice before.
Yeah.
I mean, just going back to the 90s when my dad was there, they spent their wage bill was 1.2 million in the Championship in 1995, which if you adjust it now, that well over 2 million. So they really went for it, and because their belief then was you get to the top, you get promoted. So they'd already prepared for that. They brought Phil Larder in, they brought Darryl Powell in as a standoff. They'd really gone for it, and but now you can't do that. And like you said about Derek's in an amazing position that he could take that risk, and he wanted to take that risk. For other clubs, if you've got an owner who doesn't have the pockets as deep as Derek, you can still do it if you can bring the sponsors along with you. But the difficulty is your sponsors are businesses, and business people will look at it and think, well, none of this is guaranteed. I might give you 200 grand as a sponsorship, and you're telling me you could end up as number one, but then you've got to go through a playoff competition. Yeah. And like Featherstone, you get beaten by Batley. Well, I'm sorry, it's too risky.
Yeah. No matter how much of an investor you are, you've got an element where you are risk averse.
So when they the room then said the problem of these yo-yo clubs, right? And fundamentally and systematically, the system today, when people say, okay, Keithley, you just point the fingers, but you don't give the answers on what you would do. The system today fails all the clubs that go up because of this one chance to going up. And you said, Keithley, very well, it's a gamble, because the opening the season there for players, the exchange, it starts in May. And even when we knew that, okay, we are going to full on last season, that we are going to be in championship, because we knew either way that, we had the first guaranteed already, automatic promotion, or we had the second, to guarantee in the playoffs. That's when you kind of, your gamble kind of sort of pays off. Someone that then Derek Bowman, he had to take a bet. That gamble was made in May, when he was then already recruiting and thinking ahead of the time. So he put the money, because even if someone broke a leg, if one of his best players, that he might have not led to the automatic promotion, but he still was in contention for the second spot, so it levels up the playing field. That then people say championship nowadays is a one team's season, because it's whoever starts the season with most money, whoever spends more in, or you are backed by a millionaire, and no insult, we are business people, whoever has the deepest pockets in championship, that's who is going to win. It's very unlikely that person that has the biggest pot of money is not going to go up. But the problem is the thing, you go down if you don't start recruiting earlier. And that's the problem. The solution would be make two go up, two go down. It would allow teams to prepare and, get that, because also it would lead from Super League. Those at the bottom, those players might not be happy. So actually the team here that is, okay, I'm going to get my chance to go to Super League, they would start poking those players saying, oh, look, we have a chance here because we are going to go up either in the first guaranteed promotion or the second. No, I'm going to get up, so come to me. So then you're exchanging basically full-time players, the quality players that you would stay, and it's so simple to understand, but they just don't address it.
So that's when it really frustrated me actually at the IMG meeting yesterday. So when Cowie did his talking in the meeting and explaining why he objected, and he brought out his reasoning of why the sport is failing, which is this fake expansion with it, which they keep focusing on. And the response from ING to Cowie was, oh, well, you've obviously just given up on the sport. Now, that annoyed me, because that implied it's either IMG's proposal or you've given up on the sport.
I'm telling you straight. It's my way or the highway.
Now, that's absolutely the total opposite how we think. We've come into this sport to try and make it succeed. We've tried to make Keithley Cougar succeed. But fundamentally, Keithley Cougar succeed if the sport succeeds.
Okay.
And for IMG to say to Cowie, you've given up on the sport after we've owned a club for 3.5 years, and in that period we've tripled our crowds and we've got promoted in the season where we've gone unbeaten. We've got international media for LGBTQ plus. First of all, I found it insulting, because
there's nothing to do with that.
It was just arrogant. But also, we believe in the reform of the sport in a different way. We don't believe in this grading and this scientific way of doing it and this data robotic learning or whatever that they're doing. I mean, the presentation was, for me, it was insane. It was so complicated. You literally, if you were sat in a aero physics lecture at Oxford, would be more easy to understand than some of the stuff they were talking about.
Really?
Yeah.
So for me, the way to sort this sport out, first of all, 2 up, 2 down, guaranteed, season in, season out, in all leagues. And when I say that, I also mean from League One into conference. I think there needs to be competition at the top of conference and competition at the bottom of League One, and that makes it exciting. I mean, you're going to have your Loch Lanes, you're going to have your Thatto Heaths, thinking actually we can go into League One here, guys. They've got no chance. West they'd beat the West Wales of League One from last season, but they haven't got the opportunity. Now, for me, that's fundamental. It's pretty basic. It's sport. It's about jeopardy. It's about competition. Number one, that's what I would do. Number two, the biggest mistake this sport has made, and the reason why it is dying, is because it went for that check in 1995 from Sky Sports, and it became addicted to it, and it corrupted the entire sport, and it perverted it, and it caused inflation in the wrong areas in the sport. All that money was wasted. It wasn't put into facilities for most of the clubs. It wasn't put into good business practices. It was just flitted away. Hundreds of millions of pounds has been flitted away. So I would say, guys, you got to get off this drip that you're on, which is Sky money. It's literally, it's a donation, and it's not real. You need, Sky are obviously going to, I assume, who knows, but I expect that they're going to reduce their spend into the sport. So it's already going down. So I think for me, if I was not IMG, but I think IMG are the wrong partners fundamentally. If I was the RFL, I would say, right, how do we expand this sport? The way to expand it is to make it into a national sport, not in terms of having teams in the Super League Championship around the country. I mean, in terms of eyeballs, and the eyeballs are on the TV screen. I would go to the BBC and I'd say, guys, you're struggling to get rights for soccer because it's become too expensive and all the rest of it. We will give you our sport for free, right? You put us on every Sunday on BBC One or BBC Two. Don't pay us a penny piece. And you are going to get eyeballs all around the country. People are going to start talking about rugby league. The sponsors of the clubs are going to say, wow, you're on BBC on Sunday. I want a board. I want to be on the shirt. Sponsorship is going to go through the roof. People are going to start wanting to watch rugby league. Then Keighley saying, oh, we're on BBC next weekend. You're going to get a massive full house crowd. The sport starts to rise. And that, for me, is how you solve this problem of rugby league being on its knees and getting off its knees and getting back to where it should be. And everything that IMG are talking about, which is, again, paywall TV, hide it behind a paywall so we can get a few quid for the clubs, which they're going to throw, is just not the answer. And they've done it. It's all happened before, and it's all happening again.
Yeah. So I'm going to take you back to something that you said a touch earlier there, Ryan. And they said to you that if you don't agree with the sort of proposals and stuff, you're not bothered about the sport. So as devil's advocate, how long are IMG in this for? What's their tenure?
So IMG have got signed a 12-year contract.
Right. Which,
personally, I would never sign a 12-year contract with anybody because you're getting into bed with someone that you can't get out of bed with. I hope to God the RFL have got break clauses. I suspect probably they haven't. Basically, IMG have come in. They're a massive organisation. They're American-based and all the rest of it. And they've come along with their Stardust and they've spellbound the RFL. And now
they've turned the UFC. They've turned ping pong in China. They've done massive things in certain sports.
Absolutely, 100%. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they can do it for every sport. And rugby league is a very specific, traditional, and that's the key for me. Yeah. It's a traditional sport which has got very deep roots. And you get a company coming in from America who think they can immediately just change it and make millions of pounds. It's not that simple. Actually, it is that simple, but not simple the way that they look at it, which is they're looking at it from a totally different prism. Now, from my understanding, they're not getting paid. They're commission based. So all they're focused on is broadcasting rights. So, and this is fundamentally where I see it going. They want to create this grading system. Well, they've already said they want to create it. They want to get a nucleus of grade A clubs to the point where they say, right, it's full, right? So shop closed. We've now got an elite league, Super League, or whatever they're going to, I think they're probably going to rename it, but let's just call it Super League. Super League, all the rest of you, you're out. Sorry, grade B, irrelevant now. Ta-ra, you stay there. We're going to now hoard all the money to ourselves, and we're just going to have a competition with no promotion, no relegation. And they will then walk away with their commission from whatever broadcasting deal they do. And that's the end of it. And all the rest of the teams, which will include ours and will include Batley and will include Widnes and Featherstone and all the rest of us, will just be cast adrift and eventually just whittle away and die. And they don't care about that. They're not incentivized to help those clubs. They're incentivized to create this elite core. And what we saw at the meeting in Huddersfield was a start of that process. And unfortunately, they've hoodwinked a lot of club owners and directors who are going to be victims and are going to be literally thrown to the wolves. But they don't see that because at the moment, they're starstruck, and they're also fundamentally greedy. I mean, and there's one thing about rugby league, is a lot of self-interest. And for us, this isn't actually about self-interest. I'm quite happy if Keighley Cougars never get to the Super League. I'd love us to get there. If it doesn't happen, we'll have a fantastic time in Championship. But I just hate injustice. Maybe it comes from our background being gay. And I don't like the big guys bullying the little guys. And that is how I see it. And
that's how it feels.
It does feel like that. And, you know, it's not self-interest. It genuinely is not self-interest. It is about the sport. And I can see how this sport is the best sport for me in the world, for Cowie in the world, for you guys in the world. That's why we all love it and watch it. And it's so easy to make it succeed, and it's not rocket science. And sadly, they've made it into rocket science.
You know, when you were in the meeting, so you sat down, you're in the meeting, they're doing the presentations. You said you've come with an open mind after the previous meeting with the RFL, and so you gave it the respect that it deserved. At which point are you watching the presentation or in that meeting and looking around the room, do you start to think, right, I've come with an open mind, but this really isn't right? Was there a specific point that it dawned on you? Was that in the first 5 minutes or
first slide? The guys show the first slide being fandom, you know, that you're gonna you're gonna be scored on your attendances for the last 3 years. So hold on, we are here. Let's say even a club in League One. Let's pretend we didn't go up to Championship now. Like I said, the natural ceiling of our product will not allow me to have more than 2,000 people. You know, so how that score of me being at a lower division of 2,000, and then they compare, someone in Super League that gets 10. So I am in this level here that I'll never achieve. But if the doors are there open, that then I work, I pump money into it because, you know, makes it exciting. The sponsors, Ryan said, imagine if we had sponsors, you know, that will sell the dream. Look, we are gonna have the best team here to go to Super League, and then your brand is gonna be on TV. They will pump money into you. But imagine me going to sponsors and saying, actually, the shop is now closed. So Championship now, it's just we win this Championship, we stay here. So you know, we as club owners, you know, you think, okay, are you going to get a good squad? Because it doesn't matter really. If you win, you're going to stay here. If you finish middle table, you're going to stay here. Perhaps even if you lose, like in Super League, these protections there. What is the point, you know, in anyone wanting to be better than the other one? The drive that you have by competition is not there, because you're all the same, aren't you? It's just like a tap in your back saying, oh, well done, Keighley, you won Championship. Reset next year. Okay, you're playing the same teams. What becomes the point of the sport? And like Ryan said, that's when it will die. The fans will go away because they think, oh, you know, we won Championship, that's it. You know, medal on your chest, the players a clap, and that's it.
I mean, I've got to be honest. When I sat there listening to the presentation, this sport and this club for us has taken over our entire lives. So it's passionate. We love it, 100% love it. And I sat there listening to the presentation, and I felt it was the first time I felt deflated, and I thought, I don't know if I can continue doing this. And that's me, someone so heavily involved and invested and passionate. How's a Keighley fan going to feel? How's a Batley fan going to feel? How's a Widnes fan going to feel? You know, if I sat there feeling that and thought, I think I'm
wind out of you.
Yeah, and obviously then it was all over, and then, you know, you get back on the horse and you carry on again. But I genuinely felt that, and I thought, this what I am feeling is sudden. If this goes ahead, it's going to spread over the entire sport. And again, what happened in '95 and what happened with licensing, when those crowds start to go down because it's been mismanaged and fans don't like it, this is going to happen again, and it's going to take another step down.
And then, you know, just looking at their scores, you know, so imagine you winning the competition, but then at the end of the competition, you literally have to get your scorecards there, and here stadium, you know, you can get a maximum of 3 points. 1.5 for your facilities. So, is it good enough? Then you get another point for utilization. So probably are you doing events in the crowd? 0.25 primacy of tenure. So are you the owner of that ground? 0.120. Do you see when it becomes pathetic?
But also, how are they grading this? I mean, where's the benchmark? Do they have a benchmark, or are they looking at Leeds Rhinos who've got this fabulous stadium at Headingley and saying, right, that's the benchmark, guys? So how is a club in Championship or even in League One, like a club that's trying to go places like Rochdale or Doncaster, how are they ever going to get up to that benchmark? Because they're a million miles off, and they've got no opportunity to get there because they're already down there. They haven't got the grade, so they can never actually get up there. I mean, it's silly.
Limiting.
Yeah,
limiting system.
And the thing, that's when I said, you guys are so clever here, being ingenious, in doing this so complicated and allowing actually, I said that you are not using the actual terms here, that there will be no promotion and relegation. Once you have those 12 clubs that are given category A, they say that they reassess every year. That's the fake promise. And because I said, you are being very clever in not saying the words, no promotion, no relegation. So you don't have the backlash of clubs. You don't have the backlash of the media. Look what happened just last year when the European soccer tried to create that elitist group. It got talked in Parliament.
Almost every member of this House, I suspect, I was appalled by the announcement made late last night that a handful of clubs are proposing to form their own breakaway European league. These 6 clubs announced this decision without any consultation with football authorities or with government. Worst of all, they did it without any dialogue whatsoever with their own fans.
First of all, I've just got to say, the European Super League, this is like a bad smell that you can't get rid of.
That we don't support it and support the creation of this European Super League. I think it's not in the interests of fans. It's not in the interests of football. How can it be right to have a situation in which you create a kind of cartel that stops clubs competing against each other, playing against each other properly, with all the hope and excitement that gives to fans up and down the country?
Well, the reaction to it is that it's been damned, and rightly so. I'm a Manchester United fan and have been for 40 years of my life, but I'm disgusted, absolutely disgusted.
Everybody boycotted because it's, the principles there of competitiveness, were not there. Was a cartel of the top ones protecting themselves, and even that move in being clever, saying, category A is only for existing clubs, but next year we'll review and give a few more category A's, because again, being very slowly rather than saying, okay, look, the 12 here are the 12 currently in Super League because, they have your LED light and this and that, but they are doing clever. And I praise them for that. I said, you're being very manipulative here because you're just drip feeding, things. So it doesn't look what it is that you are doing.
I mean, how can a club who gets category A ever lose it? They can't.
I'm
not sure, because I think Wigan are going to be in trouble because they don't own their own ground. I looked at the crowds that they had last night at the game, which was abysmal, really, for Wigan versus Catalan. So, and our Super League or any elite sport league or whatever it's going to be called, prepared to lose a historical club like Wigan from the top flight ranks?
They manipulate the scores, obviously, this one it scored 0 points.
They've got great hot dogs, so they get an extra 4 bonus points.
Yeah, that's the level we're at, literally. Yeah. And for me, it's just not fun. And if it's not fun, it's not sport. And if it's not fun and it's not sport, why are people going to come and watch it? They're not.
And again, you tapped there, Keith, in an area that when I was discussing, the expansions. We are in favor of expansion, but what have the French teams brought to the table. Like you just said there, probably Wigan had a low crowd, because nobody's going to catch a plane to either go to France and spend £400-500 to support your team. So you only have the French supporters there supporting, Toulouse and Catalans. But then the same goes around. Do you think that someone in France is going to, get on a plane to come to Wigan or to, let's say, Keighley? We were in the Super League. There is no movement there, and again, I think that because I love that the guys from IMG said, oh no, we got all this data. Look at the data. The Challenge Cup, the final of the Challenge Cup, where you had the Catalans in that year. Don't quote me on that, but that there was a time there. Yeah, a few years ago, it was the lowest attendance recorded, and people ask, oh, why? Look at the obvious. You have a French team that will not bring crowds, but let's have 2 teams in France.
Yeah, but on the other spin as well, when our teams go over there, they have to cover the logos up because of the advertising rights in France, and we can't advertise. So, they're putting a moratorium on us and saying, well, you can't do this and you can't do that as well. But yet we want to invite them in as an expansion. Yeah. And like you say, that money for you as a team to fly to France, as a Super League club, it's probably 20 grand, maybe more.
Yeah.
To take your team out there, and then you go a day before because of a slight acclimatization. Because if you go on the day,
you're going to lose.
As much as it is, me and Dave have both, we played away at Hull and travel on a coach for 4 hours, and that just knackers you out. You're pretty much sodden before you get on the pitch, and. So, yeah, I don't see that. Why not keep it, like you said, as a corridor or more expansion teams down here, expanding to Cumbria? There's some great talent in Cumbria and teams that we could have there,
Yeah.
There's an identity with rugby league. You touched upon it earlier. There's a real identity in those communities, and there's a big risk with the push for city teams, maybe outside the traditional areas, which don't have that identity, the links to the community, the history. That's I think you said, Ryan, about the deep roots in many of these places. Yeah, and therefore that risk is there that it may do, even if it did well for 1 year, it could easily be forgotten the year after because there's no roots there, where Keighley has withstood over 100 years of some very good times and some very difficult times, but it's still here and it's still doing very well.
I mean, the problem is they've taken the traditional team, the Heartland teams, the M62 corridor teams for granted. They've left them and said, "Oh, we're a bit embarrassed by you. Your little towns, and we want this glamour of London and France and Canada and all the rest of it." And if they just focused on the core and improved it, with all this money they've had over the years that they've wasted, if they just improve that, it would then slowly spread because it's successful. You've got to make your core successful. You can't have a weak core, which you're embarrassed about, and say, I know what the solution is. Let's just forget about them. We're a bit embarrassed. Let's get these glamorous clubs out here, which end up failing. And then ultimately they come back to the core, still embarrassed and saying, oh, we're now going to put another rule on you. When that's what they've done time and time again. Actually, be proud of what we've got and invest in what we've got and then expand organically. That for me is the answer. I mean, the number one thing we've talked about what I think should be in terms of broadcasting. It should be free to air. The sport shouldn't at this stage be asking money for it, but I don't think it deserves it, to be honest. And I think that's the embarrassing thing about going to Sky every contract renewal and begging them for more money. And every year Sky gives a kick and gives less money to the point where it's going to end up at zero. We should sit down now and say the sport does not deserve to be paid millions for broadcast. We need the broadcaster more than they need us. Let's give it to them for free. Let the nation look at it. But on top of that, the RFL and Super League, or whatever they're calling now, RL commercial, this hybrid, they need to market the sport. I was astonished. They don't have a TikTok channel. Everything is about TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Facebook is dying. Twitter is full of trolls. It's all about video and it's all about that kind of engagement. Rugby League doesn't have a TikTok channel. So, do they have a marketing department? They have a media department. And I know Andy Wilson, who runs it, is very competent and very good at his job. But that's very different to marketing. And they don't have one.
Most people in the RFL won't be on TikTok, so therefore they won't deem it as any benefit to them.
But that's where that's where it is.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, we just see it's simple in America, the success of getting a big name celebrity. What Rihanna did for the Super Bowl, and everybody, even across the continent, we are here talking about the Super Bowl, interval show that it was being held by Rihanna. The previous year was Beyonce, Madonna, and there was that.
It becomes bigger than the event almost.
Yes, yeah. People were actually watching and tuning in, but it's good. It's good because you're having then people coming to your grounds to watch. Why not make the final of the Super League? The final of even the Challenge Cup, we have a good product. Why not put? That's when it's so basic and so simple that I said you have made something so simple, so complicated.
Yeah.
Get a level artist. Say this year, everybody then starts talking. We're gonna have who is a famous.
Get the Foo Fighters on.
Yeah. Put it there. People start talking, saying, "Oh my God, let's buy the Challenge Cup," and then the Challenge Cup starts circulating in everyone's ears and saying, like, "Oh, what is this?" Oh, then people will come to your ground to watch the match because they want to fall. It's so easy.
Marketing, entertainment, give people a good day out.
Yeah.
Don't start grading you 0.1% because you haven't got a big screen. I mean, it's just.
Yeah. And on the hoarding as well, the advertisement boards, would IMG have a say in that or what you can put on there?
Who knows?
I don't know.
Who knows?
Don't know.
If they're a marketing company and they're pushing heavily on the advertising boards, I'm pretty sure that there's a hidden agenda there.
But you see, what worries me is that IMG have basically been given the sport. IMG are. They own
help us. Yeah.
No one's realised that. The sport has been sold for free to IMG at the moment. That's how I see it. The management of the RFL are basically just subordinates to IMG, and nobody's agreed to this. But it's happened on the sly, on the quiet, and these guys are now running the sport.
So Rugby League has been cuckolded.
I think that's basically how I think. That's what I think, and it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, I'm not a fool. I do believe that this is going to get voted in because I think there's a lot of self-interest and a lot of people who don't fully understand it. I do think it's going to get voted in. We'll fight against it because we fundamentally, not from a Keighley point of view, from a Rugby League point of view, don't agree with it. But if it gets voted in, we've got to then live under that regime. We've got to live with it. We've got to be realists about it. But I fully expect it not to work. And I fully expect in 5-10 years' time, we're going to be back to the same place again. And
having spent tons of money, lost a lot of probably clubs, fans.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's sad because this is such a good sport. And it's so sad that time and time again.
I'll ask you a question then. Without the sentiment that you've got, as a business, would you still be invested? Take the sentiment away.
Less so, certainly. Because I said to you earlier about I did feel quite flattened when I was sitting in that meeting. And, if you can't get to where you want to get to, why would you go that extra mile? And we've gone the extra miles since we took over in League One. We spent way more than we should have done. We've worked way harder than we should have done. It's taken up a lot of our time. If we just all we can do is get a medal at the end of it in Championship, would I want to do that all again? Yes, if there was Super League, there's that's fabulous.
Yeah,
that's the ultimate. But if we can never get to the ultimate, why would we go that extra mile?
It's the ambition. If you kill the ambition, what is the point? Us waking up every day. You want to work hard to pay your mortgage, to buy a car, to go traveling. You always have to have the desire to get something.
Strive for something.
Yeah. And
sorry, go.
Even actually removing this drive, so the so-called protected, let's say that you get there, the Super League, you're going to have those 12 clubs that are protected regardless. One of them might actually think, actually, I'm going to sit here in my ass. I'm getting 1.7 million from Sky anyways, regardless of if I win or not. But instead of actually spending the money in the squad, let's take it easy this year. Let's just spend 200,000 on the squad. We're going to lose, but I'm going to profit 1.5 million. And so be it. Next season, maybe then, I'll spend the money. Even killing that drive there, if it's protected of regardless if you finish bottom, there is no danger for you. Some of these clubs might think, well, let me keep at least half. Let's say they keep 650,000. No. 850,000, the other 850,000, then you spend on the team. But hey, get a license, be a Super League, you're protected, and you're profiting 850,000 and spend the rest in the squad.
Because only 25% is performance. So if you've got 75% on the other stuff, you own your stadium, you've got your
LED lights, you have social media,
you've got your catchment area whilst you're in London.
Good hot dogs.
Yeah. Hot dogs. Yeah, category there.
And you've got a crap team, but it's fine. Your crap team doesn't matter. It's only 25%.
Yeah,
it feels disproportionate, the scoring.
Yeah.
I think from what you've said, it's likely to be voted in. But in terms of a challenge, it feels to me people opposed to it would have more success trying to change those percentages and the scoring system than trying to not get it voted in. It feels as though it's here. And it's going to be pushed through some way.
And it seems like the masses are saying yes to it because they want in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And fundamentally, there's a lot in there that we do agree with.
Yeah.
We do. Stadium needs to improve. Finances of clubs needs to improve. Catchment areas are important. There are things that a lot of it we agree with. We just don't agree with the way it's being implemented And that's why when I come back to this whole thing about minimum standards, just the minimum standard rules are there. Just make them better, make them a bit stricter, and help clubs to get there. Now, there's no help from IMG for clubs to get there. It's just you've got to get there or you're out. The Rugby League, they should say, right, guys, these are the minimum standards. And I've said this before to the RFL. The RFL should have within their organisation a department that helps clubs write bids and work with Sport England and the National Lottery and all these things to get grants for stadia, because it's all left to the clubs. Now, if you're a small club, you haven't got the resources to employ a bid writer and do the research on how to get a grant for this, that, and the other. The RFL can do that, and they can second these people out to the clubs and say, let's just say, for example, there's a club in Dartmouth and have got a rubbish stadium, but they're doing really well. And the RFL goes to them and says, actually, guys, you need a better stadium. So we're going to second our bid writer. They're going to write you bids to Sport England, National Lottery, all these funders, and they'll do the best to get you a good stadium. That's what should be happening. The centre should be helping the clubs. What this proposal isn't that. It's not helping the clubs. It's saying to the clubs, you either do it yourself with no money, and then you might be able to pass our criteria, which we're really strict about, and make it almost impossible, or you're out. And that for me is wrong.
Yeah. So it shall be written, so it shall be done.
Yeah.
I really like that idea of centralising. If every single club had to employ a bid writer, that's obviously going to be far more expensive than the NFL employing 2 or 3 and then sending them to work with the clubs. And I guess that's just bid writing. There must be other things that could be centralised to improve the whole sport and support all the clubs rather than just leaving it to them.
I did a presentation to the RFL back in COVID, wasn't it, when this whole IMG thing was starting to be muted. And I sat down and thought about these things. And that was one of the things I came up with, was this central support for clubs in terms of bid writing to improve their stadia. Because fundamentally, the clubs can't afford to do it themselves. they need outside funding to help them, and to access that is a specialism. And it's once you understand that system and you understand the rules, it's not that difficult for that to be implemented and obtained by the clubs. My second thing was I wanted to create incubator leagues. So, and this is where the whole thing about expansion that Kai was talking about earlier, I would create incubator leagues in certain areas. So say, for example, Cornwall, right? So it's a new expansion area. You create an incubator in that area of a certain radius, and the RFL put in charge of that area a specialist, growth director who in turn pulls marketing resources from the centre, and there is a certain allocation of Sky money which is put into that incubator, which is then distributed but with strings attached to every single club, and it's then they're forced to grow themselves instead of just giving them money and saying, carry on guys, crack on, you've got a license, you're in League One, you do what you want. Create an incubator, and you do that all around the country, and then suddenly your expansion starts to work, because you're going to get, not all incubators are going to work, but one might, and you might get a club in, I don't know, Leicester, because the Leicester or East Midlands based incubator has actually really succeeded. It's marketed itself. It's got, I suggested giving each incubator about 300 grand. And, you get a couple of clubs coming up there with really good support, good community support, good council support, all the rest of it. And suddenly you can say, actually, apply for a license because you've proved yourself. And they're the kind of things that should be happening. And that's why I disagree with this stuff, because this is top heavy, it's elitist. You've got to be much more specific and much more focused on growing the game from the bottom up, not from the top down.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly given me a lot more to think about since listening to you. You've opened my eyes to a lot of things. Some bits I kind of understood, but you've described it very, very well and put a very strong case forward. So really appreciate you sharing those. And I'm sure people who listen, who may have had certain thoughts after listening to you, will see it differently. And where they end up on that spectrum, I don't know. I still see some merits in it, but like you mentioned before, Ryan, around the minimum standards that exist already, I'm sort of favouring at this current time more of a shift with that rather than a complete change that we're seeing here. So, yeah, there's a lot to process and think about. And, it certainly feels disproportionate from what you say. But thank you very much for sharing those thoughts.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity. It's a stressful time, to be honest. I mean, we've stuck our necks out and we're getting a bit of stick. We're getting a good bit of support, but at the end of the day, we believe in what we believe in, and I do think a lot of it comes from our background, which Cowie said earlier, which is fighting as a bit of a minority, and we've succeeded in our own personal lives in that way. We feel very confident in the people we are, and now we've come into this club, and I think maybe we're seeing that kind of thing happening again, and we'll fight for minorities against people who are trying to press you. And I think that's how we feel about this current proposal.
Yeah. But it shines through when you talk. It really shines through. And we've been really impressed and thrilled to have you on the show. It's been a privilege listening to you guys. Really has.
It's been an honour to be on. Thank you very much.
And a pleasure talking. I love talking.
So thanks for joining us on this week's rugby show. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to Ryan. Thank you to Cowie. And it's been a pleasure, like you say, an eye-opener. Lots of food for thought. We'd love to hear your comments. Bang them in the comments section on the YouTube channel. And if you've got any questions for Ryan or Cowie, please put them in there as well. We'll get them to them, or they'll come on and respond to it as well. Guys, it won't be the last time that we see you. I'm pretty sure that we'll get together again soon. But thanks for your time. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
See you.
Don't forget, after tonight's show, leave your views in our comments section. We'd love to hear from you.
The Dockhouse Rugby Show is proud to support the Teardrops Homeless Charity. Teardrops, supporting your community.